doing a wonderful little book promo, I guess. Also, a little bit of saying goodbye. This past year, 2020, which took so many people, took from us a great author, a lady by the name of Rachel Caine. The reason I'm here doing this is just not because Rachel was a great author, although that's what led me to her, but because she was an enormous human being. She was kind, she was humble, she was everything you want a human being to be. Uh, how I started reading her work was an interesting phenomenon. I read everything my daughter reads before she reads it, especially in the YA genre, young adult. Um, some of those books get a little bit more adult than they are young. So I try to sort of screen and filter what it is she gets. Now my daughter is 17 now, and she wouldn't listen to me if I was right. But I want to share with you guys a little bit of. I have read literally every book you can buy by Rachel Caine. Uh, at some point, I stopped buying them because Madeline was reading them, and I started buying them because I was hooked on them. She wrote a Morganville Vampires series that was like 15 books long, uh, and it really, like, the way she wrote her characters and how her characters grew throughout this 15 book series, how they evolved, the people they became through the experiences that they encountered in the book, really affected me, uh, not just as a writer but as a reader. The woman is a phenomenal author. Uh, Long about 2017, she embarked on this series, right? The Stillhouse Lake series. Um, I read a lot of books, in case you haven't noticed. Um, and I tend to lean toward or favor, sort of techno thrillers or thrillers. Um, I read a lot of crime novels. I read a lot of classic literature and philosophy, and then there's the political science and all that craziness I read. But I started talking to Rachel on Twitter, of all things. She was on Twitter regularly, and I just dropped in and said, "Hey, I read your book," and I commented, "This was wonderful. What you did here, what you did here," and she replied to me and said, "Yeah, thanks for that. It's a wonderful thing." And first of all, I was like, "Oh, somebody replied to me." I don't know Twitter. I don't know from Twitter. But when somebody replies to me on social media, I'm always a little bit surprised. Moreover, I was writing something at the time which was a historical novel, a Civil War novel. Um, I was about 40,000 words into it, and I had some questions. And I said, "What would you do if this and this and this?" And she came back to me, and in 2 sentences, "Oh my God, Lisa, that's wonderful." Um, in 2 sentences, she told me exactly what was wrong with what I was doing right there. This woman who's written 50 books, who's New York Times bestseller, who's shows up at Comic-Con to talk to people about how to write. This woman took time out of her day to read. I'm sure she only had to read like 2 paragraphs before she knew exactly what was wrong with it, and then come back to me and say, "Hey, this is what you can do better." And And that was one of the things that electrified me about Rachel, was that, her approach to people, always in the positive, always coming through in a positive. A lot of that comes through in her books, but you know, I so you have a Twitter relationship with someone, right? It's you're trading emails or whatever, and yeah, you don't even call it a relationship. It's like but come to find out, she lives in Fort Worth, Texas, or lived, and she, I was flying down there for business, and I said, hey, I'm going to be in Fort Worth. I'd love to meet you. Let me take you and your husband to dinner. And so, she's like, cool. Again, I'm blown away because I'm kind of starstruck, right? 50 books, New York Times bestseller. And that's about the time, 2017, that this book came out. And I picked up this book and I read it. And I have to say that I thought that, just about everything has been done. There are only about 150 plots in the world. The vast majority of them come from the Bible or are in the Bible. But this was something new. She took the internet, she took cyberbullying to a whole new level, and said this woman, this Gina Royal, who was married to a serial killer, didn't know it. And when he was convicted and put away for life until he was executed, she, no one believed her. So they kept chasing after her. They kept pursuing her. The book continues, right? Kilman Creek. This particular one, Wolf Hunt the River, is something that I will treasure forever, because when I flew to Dallas and I met with her and her husband, we sat there, we had a wonderful dinner, a wonderful conversationalist. We talked about writing, we talked about books, we talked about music. Her and her husband both in love with music, and Joe Bonamassa, of all people. She gave me this book mark, and then she signed my book for me somewhere in here. Maybe if I can turn pages. Yeah. It's to Charles. Love and the best, from Rachel. So, I have actually, I have all of her books, and all of her books are signed. But then Bitter Falls came out, and, I was planning, I was headed back to Dallas, and I sent her a message. I'm like, hey, let's do this again. And she's like, I'd love to, but I have cancer. And that's kind of taking up most of my time right now. So, the 2019, I think, we spent most of the year, or she spent most of the year, not me, I was reading books. But she spent most of the year dealing with that. During the time she was dealing with the cancer, her husband, Sarah, her beloved assistant, helping her as much as she could, hammering out words after words and pages. She produced this book. And so this book is, I think the link to it is in the thing. It's another Stillhouse Lake book. It's called Heartbreak Day. And I'm going to open it. And then I'm going to do a little toast for Rachel. And then I'm going to let you guys go. And I'm going to start the read. This is Rachel's last book. This wonderful human being produced a thriller that I didn't anticipate. I didn't see it coming. And that, when I write, that's what I long for. That's what I try to do. You know, I want to do something that the reader doesn't see coming. And so for Rachel, it's time to start this read. So I'm going to have a little drink, celebrate her life. In the great beyond, Rachel, God love you. I certainly do. So I'm going to read. You guys have an amazing night. And if you would, pick up Rachel's book or any of the other 50 books. 50 plus books that she's got. All right. Love you guys.